want to welcome every one of us to this particular section of this course, Contemporary Church Law and Statutory Laws. My name is Seye, Awopetu. By the grace of God, I'm a legal practitioner. I haven't practiced law for 32 years now. And by God's grace, I'm also a minister with the Foursquare Gospel Church in Nigeria and currently the zonal superintendent of Foursquare Gospel Church, Awopetu Zonal Headquarters Church. So by way of introduction to this course, the section objective, that is the course objective, among other things, is to understand the requirements for the church registration with relevant regulatory organs of government. What are the pre-registration requirements? To understand the post-registration requirements. Also, what are the expectations of the law from the church as a non-profit organization? Among other things, we also look at the rights of the church under the laws. Can the church sue? Can the church be sued? We also look at the brief about the church leader on criminal and civil law, law of inheritance, will, etc. What about the brief about the church and the acquisition of landed properties, lease and rentals? By God's grace, these are some of the things we'll be looking at. And we'll also look at conflict and dispute resolution among the body of Christ. I will look at alternative to litigation, which is alternative dispute resolution, mediation, reconciliation, and arbitration as an alternative to litigation by the church. And we'll also look at the statutory regulatory bodies that the church that regulates the activities of the church. By the grace of God, we also look at the relationship between the church and this regulatory body. We'll also be looking at understanding if the church can engage in profit-making businesses, since under the law, it is a non-profit organization. And we will conclude the course by looking at the church and tax matters and pension of ministers in the church and church staffs. By way of introduction, I would like to say that, like any other important aspect of human life, we understand that laws that governs the activities of the church, what I'm trying to say is that just like you have in every aspect of human life, there are laws that govern the activities of the church. The church is also subject to the laws of the land, of its location, and we are advised as ministers to know such laws. Ignorance of it is no excuse. I want you to also stress the importance that it is important to know how the law works between the church and other churches and organizations, and also between members. Very, very important. What is expected of the church under this law? So basically, this course is to enlighten the students about the basic law relevant to the operation of the church and laws that regulate the relationship between the church and other organization, government, and between church members. As a church leader, it is important to understand some legal principles which will be useful to our personal lives and will be handy when we counsel church members. Some of our members expect us to have answers to all inquiries. So it is very, very important for us to read and learn widely so that at least we can have an idea of the subject matter before referring them to experts. It's very, very important. In the course of our counseling, aside from the fact that it will be very useful for our own personal life, when our members come or when things happen by a gathering, it's expected of us to be able to, if not having the expertise, but at least have an idea of the subject, so that before you refer your members or people that come to you for counseling to experts, you'll be able to tell them the bits that you know. So what we are advising is that as church leader, we should know what we are permitted to do within the law, so that not to be ignorant, to fall prey. Remember, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Thank you. You're welcome back to the first lesson in this our discussion on contemporary church law and statutory laws. What we'll be looking at first is we'll be looking at church registration, which is what people ask. I get inquiries from people, especially those of us that are working under independent ministries. And I realized that in Nigeria today, we have, I don't want to just blow it out, that majority of the independent ministries, I say majority, are not registered. And what we want to look at is what are the requirements if you are to register a ministry in Nigeria. One thing I have to say straight away is that this differs from country to country. And I know that we have people from Zimbabwe and also have one of the participants from the US. So one of the things I will advise is that you should, as a matter of urgency, if you are working in a ministry that is not really yet registered, get the counsel of people that are in charge of such registration, so that you not run contrary to the laws of the country. So for purpose of emphasis, as we take this course, you permit me to discuss the Nigerian law as relates to church registration. Before the enactment of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 as amended, the registration of non-profit organization, which church, it includes church or churches, falls within the purview of the Federal Ministry of Trade. However, now the Corporate Affairs Commission, established under the Company and Allied Matters Act 2020, is responsible for the regulation of companies and non-profitable organizations. Part F, under the new CAMA, Section 823 to 850 of the Company and Allied Matters Act 2020, deals with matters that relates to incorporations of trustees, which church registration falls under. Section 823 talks about registration, and if you permit me to explain further, Section 825 subsection 1 A to C lists the requirements that must be met before a church must be registered. I know some of you, your heart will be beating that this one that pastor is quoting sections upon sections, that in your tests, in your assignments, on your exams, these sections will not be asked. Don't worry, we will not saddle you. But what we're just trying to do is that being an executive diploma course, you are supposed to know this, at the tips of your fingers. Like we said, it's always very good for us to widen our knowledge, so that at least, by the grace of God, when we have the responsibility of advising people, we will not talk like novice, but at least people will know that we have an idea of what we are talking about. So, section 825, subsection 1, A to C, lists the requirements, the things that you need to be in place before your organization can be registered. One of the things, among other things, is that you need names of the proposed association that will be incorporated. One of the things, when people make inquiry, I suggest to them that, can we have 2 names or 3 names that will forward to the Corporate Affairs Commission for them to do a search whether the name you are proposing is available for registration. This one is different from, they have a similarity from when you want to incorporate companies or business name. But since what we are looking at specifically here, it's church registration. And so it must include the name to be registered as incorporated trustees. You also have to state the aims and objective of the proposed association. What do you want to use it for? And of course, the name and address of the proposed trustees and secretary of the church in this situation. Section 825, subsection 2, A to C, states that attached to the application must be 2 printed copies of the association's constitution, duly signed minutes of the meeting appointing the trustees, and authorizing the application of the association, and an impression or the drawing of the proposed seal of the association. These are the list. To recap what I've just said, from section 825, section 1, subsection 1 and 2. When you are applying for church registration, in this place, in this regard, you'll be applying for registration of incorporated trustees under CAMA. You are supposed to suggest name of the incorporated trustee. Secondly, the aims and objective. What you want to use the organization for. In this instance, what is the vision? What are the goals? Like in the organization I belong to, we call it the tenets of faith. That's the tenets of faith, what we believe. So you state it that these are the things you want to use it for. Included in that is a copy of the constitution, at least 2 copies of the constitution of the association, proposed association to be registered, names and addresses of the trustees to be so appointed, and of course, we have the minutes appointing the trustees to be appointed, and an impression or a drawing of the seal, that is the seal of the proposed organization to be registered. Section 825, subsection 3, states that the application shall be signed by the person making the application, while section 826 lists those who are not qualified to be appointed as trustees. Among other things, section 827 lists the information that the constitution should contain, while section 828 talks about the requirement of adverts in 2 national dailies for 28 days to see if there will be any objection to the applications. Section 827 A to Z, subsection A to C, lists the information that the constitution should contain. That means the constitution that you are submitting to the Corporate Affairs Commission for registration. This information includes the names and the title of the association, the aims and objective. For example, if you are seeing an average constitution, it will tell you that we, the members of so ministries or so association, having resolved to come together to form an association, thereby sets forth this rule as part of our rules to govern whatever we do. If you have gotten one of a copy of the Nigerian Constitution, that's the introductory part of it also. And likewise, so whereas this requirement requires that the association must contain, the constitution must contain the aims and objective. And how do you appoint your trustees, their power, their duty, the tenure of office, and replacement of trustees? How do you replace trustees? How do you stop somebody from being a trustee? How do you remove somebody from being a trustee? When the tenure of the trustee expires, what happens? All this must be contained in your constitution. Then the use and the custody of the common seal, the meetings of the organization, and the numbers and members of the governing body, appointments and removals of power. All this, for purpose of emphasis, must be stated. Like the organization I belong to, the organogram, the way we have it, we have as the highest decision-making body, we have what we call the business committee of the National Convention. And underneath, those are for us, that is the highest decision-making body. Even though the set of the people that the law recognizes are the incorporated trustees of the organization. So that's why there are some organizations that you have what is called the governing bodies. The governing body they may be different from the members of the board of trustees. Like I said, we have the board of trustees, we have the board of directors in that order, and we have the National Executive Committee. We have made up of the district overseers, and other people so appointed by the board. And you have the district council, you have the zonal council, like that. When we get to the sister course, corporate governance and structure, we'll be talking more on that. But for now, those are some of the things that the constitution, so being submitted for registration, will have. So when that is done, and your application is acceptable by the Corporate Affairs Commission, like earlier stated, there will be a publication in 2 national dailies indicating that so people have applied to register so association as an incorporated trustee, and that if there's any reason why the association should not be registered, or why any of the people listed should not be made a trustee of the organization, that whoever has such should raise the objection within the next 28 days. So after 28 days, if there is no objection, such person, such organization will be registered, and according to section 830 subsection 1 A to D, such trustees shall become a body corporate by the name described on the certificate. If you have maybe in the course of the course, I could do, since that belongs to me, I could do a kind of a sample of what an incorporated trustee is. We just place it on our platform for us to see, so that this is a copy, this is the way the certificate will come. And one other thing that I must warn us, especially those of us that are head of ministries, that when you don't go through the right channel, you have forged company certificates registered. Just from experience, I can tell you that now. And the same thing also, they can forge the incorporated trustee certificate, that by the time you now make a search, maybe something else happened that you need to make a search at the Corporate Affairs Commission, you realize that you are fall victim of fraudsters, and they'll tell you that you're sorry, your registration is not registered. So it's always very good to note that, so that you go through the right source. Don't be penny foolish, what they call it, penny wise, pound foolish, so that you think you are saving money. But it's always good to go through somebody that knows what he's doing, and somebody that you can easily report to the authority in case if there is anything. So section 848 1 to 3 also states the requirement the association must file annual returns. And the reason for this is that there's a financial year for incorporated trustees, including churches. So if you are a church general overseer, or you are the top echelon of a church, or you belong to any organization that falls under part F of the Corporate Affairs CAMA, Company and Allied Matters Act of 2020, you have not been filing your annual return regularly, you are in breach of the law. And God forbid that the devil will want to use that to torment you one of these days. Please, I seek that you seek for counsel and seek to do the right thing. Praise the name of the Lord. So we'll now go to the expectation of the church by the Lord. What does the law expect from the church? What does the law expect from the church? You see, the church itself is under the law of the land. And that's what the Bible in Romans chapter 13, verse 1 to 7 makes us to realize. The law requires every church to be law-abiding and encourage their members to be also. I want to believe that there is no one among us, whether as local church pastor or district supervisor, zonal superintendent, or even general overseer, that says that, look, I cannot submit myself to the law of this country. I cannot submit to the law of the country that I find myself, because heavenly law, spiritual law is higher than. My brothers and sisters, My advice to you is that it's in your best interest to submit to the law of the country that you find yourself operating your ministry. Because if you fall on the wrong side of the law, the devil will also do it in such a way that you will make sure that you embarrass. We'll still discuss the provisions of Romans chapter 13, 1 to 7 in our discussion after listening to this video. But it is very, very important to state here that the church and the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria that was established by the FRCN, that is Federal Reporting Council of Nigeria Act number 6, 2011, under the supervision of the Federal Ministry of Trade, Industry and Investment. It is very, very, very important for us that the church is under that body. And I want us to just know that the church, the law expects that every one of us be subject, just like Romans chapter 13 tells us. They expect every one of us to be law abiding. And let it not be that as ministers in the temple of God, we are promoting unlawful things among our members. Because, like I said, the devil will be willing to embarrass us if for any reason we fall short of what the law says. Part of the expectations of the church by the law is what the Corporate Governance Code that was released by the Federal Reporting Council of Nigeria for non-profit organization. The council, in an attempt to provide proper guidance to non-profit organization, released the Corporate Governance Code. The aim of the code was to ensure that the church comply with Corporate Governance Code, basically transparent financial reporting and limiting the tenure of the leader of the church as it is done for other organizations. That particular step by the Federal Reporting Council of Nigeria stirred up much argument, and people were of the essence that were saying that this is the move of the Antichrist. They are trying to control the church, the government. That is the way the government started in Turkey. They are mentioning and what have you. But see, a very good understanding of what that code, Corporate Governance Code, was saying is that there are so many churches, I say this without apology, that they don't report to anybody. The general overseer of the church controls the finance. He controls the finance. He spends the finance and gives reports to nobody. And the company, the government thought it wise in their wisdom that there's a need to make churches accountable. If they are not accountable to their members, but at least since they are operating within a country, they should be accountable to the country, organ of the country. But some of us saw it as a plot by the government to take over the church. Blah, 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 this and that. And there was a lot of opera. People shouted, it's not this, it's not that, blah, this and that. And those of us that had an understanding of what the government was trying to do if you want to touch the fabric of the heart of Nigerians, do anything concerning religion, and everybody will just, whether right or wrong, brr. What the code is saying in essence is that there must be structure on ground when it comes to your financial reporting. In other climates, like for instance in UK, when you go to church in UK, they give you a slip. In the slip they give you, when you are giving your offering, you list what you are giving, and part of it, the church will enter their record and report to the government and remit to the government certain part of it that will be returned back to them as a charitable organization. So some of these countries, for people that goes to minister in this country, they'll tell you that they cannot give you anything that is going to go to their record. They cannot give you more than so amount when it comes to honorarium, because it has to go into their record. Whatever they gives you after that is that maybe personal donations and what have you. Some of us, we've ministered in such situation and you've seen yourself that was what they gave you. Why? Because they have a system in place that every kobo, every money that comes into the church, they give accounts of it. That was what the government was trying to do in Nigeria. But and hell was let loose. And another thing that they tried to introduce, which they introduced in the corporate world, like for example now, you cannot have, like if you are the MD of the bank in Nigeria, no matter how good you are, cannot serve more than 10 years. That they've incorporated, you can't serve more than 10 years. After 10 years, it's required that you step down for another person to take place. So that's how they wanted to try the church. And the church rose against it and said, no, you cannot dictate to us. You tell us to retire. Yeah, we're retiring to. No. What they were just trying to do is to teach us the need for succession plan. You cannot be there all the time. There should be the way you do things. I thank God for the organization I belong to. Well, maybe because of our foreign background. For example now, the general overseer of the church, which is open to any member of the church. You can rise, you are not a member of the founding family. You can become the general overseer of the church. You can even become the international president of the church. And the way it's stipulated, like in Nigeria, you cannot serve, no matter how anointed you are, you cannot serve more than 10 years. After 10 years, you step down, another person takes over. I think that was what they were just trying to do, but the African sector, everybody wants to be there, and we misunderstood it. And like I said, anything that has to do with religion in Nigeria, the government is very, very careful because it could be around. And what was the end of it? The code was suspended after much agitation. And funny enough, the head of the board, John Obazi, was removed as a result of the controversy that followed the outcry of the release of the Code for Corporate Governance in 2016. Praise the name of the Lord. So, we need to now look at, we need to pause a bit and discuss that provisions, what the Bible says in Romans chapter 13, verses 1 to 7. We need to discuss it. We'll come back after a short while. We'll resume listening to this video. Thank you. Thank you for the discussion on Romans chapter 13, verse 1 to 7. Having an understanding of what the Bible says as it relates to the church, obeying, even Christians generally, obeying the laws of the country that you find yourself. There's a video that we're going to watch on anger management by the police PRO. But I just want to point out that it is very, very important, very, very important that as a church, everything we are supposed to do, we should do it in line with the word of God. Very, very important. Yes, the law is there for us. But one thing I've realized in the course of my study, or as a practicing lawyer, I try to explain a brief to people that the laws, most of the laws, I'm not talking about the laws that allows homosexuals and whatever, but before we have the advent of this new set of laws, if you look at the way the law is, let's take Nigerian law for an instance. We have what we call the law, and we have the intervention to the law, which we call equity. For me, the Old Testament is like the law that says eyes for an eyes, a tooth for a tooth. If you cut somebody's hand, you should cut your own hand. That is the strict law. But there was the intervention of equity in the law. And what does equity do? Equity seems to look at, instead of removing the person's eyes, does the person have intention to harm that person? That's where equity comes. And that's what the New Testament is also. So, we as Christians must not only be law abiding, we must also be people that obeys the law. Teach people to obey the law. The Lord will help us. Because like Apostle Peter said, that it will not profit us if we are being punished for doing the wrong thing. That rather, let it be that we did what is right, and if they punish us for doing what is right, we know that we are doing what is right. But not that you are doing what is wrong, and at the same time, you are saying that you are being persecuted. For example, one of the things I see that is very common on our road, somebody jokingly said, the car of some people are more born again than the people themselves. In fact, one of the jokes that we joke is that when you want to know a genuine Christian, let him come and drive in Lagos. Those of you that have not been to Lagos before, I'm telling you that. I've been in people's, Christians, their cars, and somebody will offend them on the road. You see them, your mother, the person will do your mother, they will do their. You not be imagining. Some of you who may abuse you, not be imagining what's going on. But what we want to say in essence is that every one of us, we are subject to the law of the land, and the law will help us. So as we round up this section, we'll look at briefly, can the church sue? And can the church be sued? We'll go back to Karma again to get our bearing. Section 830 1C of the Corporate Affairs, Company and Allied Matters Act, empowers the incorporated trustees to be sued and to sue. The organization can sue and be sued in the name of the incorporated trustees of the organization. What we are saying in essence is that a church can sue, but it must sue in the name of the incorporated trustees that is registered. And so for churches that are not registered, they are not corporate body, they are not recognized as a juristic person, so they cannot sue. But if you are registered under the Nigerian law or under the law, you can sue and be sued. I've had occasion to represent our organization. I remember one of the days when I represented the organization, not knowing that the judge at the High Court is also a member of our organization. The first question she asked me is that, you have the right to represent this organization? I said, yes. And it was now like asking probing question. I said, yes, I have the permission of the national leadership as delegated to me by the national legal advisor to represent the organization in this regard. It was later on that I discovered that she's a member of the church. So that was why she has to be sure that the right person is. So the church can be sued. But one fundamental thing I want us to discuss as we end this section, the video that we're going to watch will be to start the next section. Is how do we balance this with the Bible injunction not to go to court, not to go to law against one another? 1 Corinthians chapter 6, 1-7. How do we settle business disputes? How do we settle property disputes, property matters in court? And what about divorce matters among Christians? Let's discuss that as we end this section. Thank you.
Today we want to discuss issue of anger, violence, fights, attacks, and the likes. Many of us don't know what the law is saying about some of these things I've just mentioned. When you go out, you meet someone, either you slap, that's a case of assault. And in most cases, when you slap someone and the person slumps and dies, it is not a case of assault again. It's a murder case. It is presumed that you have killed someone. Before you be able to clarify this or to exonerate yourself, it's going to take some time, because a murder case is not just mere offense in law. It's not. It's a felony in law, which means, and it's a capital offense. Can we actually work on anger, temperament, the way we respond to issues? Many of us, when we experience anything, immediately we throw caution into the wind and we start fighting, public fighting one another. All of these things we do, consciously or unconsciously, are criminal offenses in the law. When two people fight in the public, it's an offense. We call it affray. When you slap someone, even if the person does not respond, you slapping, you have committed an offense, a case of assault. Then we have categories of assault. When you cause bodily harm to someone, injury to someone, it's another offense entirely. That one goes beyond issue of assault. We have assault occasional harm. Then the degree of this injury determines the nature of the offense again. We have grievous harm. When you cause bodily harm or grievous harm to someone, it has higher punishment than assault or assault occasional harm. All these things go like that. Then, if you beat someone in a fight and you cause injury to someone, do you know that if that person dies within a year and a day, the law still presumes you are the one that killed the person? That the injury you have caused to this person is still the cause of the death, except otherwise stated by experts, either autopsy or something else. That is why it's dangerous. A year and a day that you fought, maybe in your locality, in your village, in the cast room, a market square, shopping mall, anywhere. You fight someone, you caused bodily injury to the person. In a year and a day, if that person dies, the law still presumes. It's a presumption in law. And in most cases it stands, except otherwise explained, or expert opinions come around to say no, it is not so. It is this and that. It is presumed that within that period, the bodily injury you have caused to this person is still the cause of the death. I think we need to avoid having contact with people, physical assault, attacks, and the likes. We can easily express our anger by mere talking. And when you even talk and expressing your anger, you don't need to shout. You can as well pass out that message without raising your voice. Raising your voice again can trigger your BP. Then you slump, you die. You say it's the devil. No. You need to take things easy, particularly in Nigeria now. At every slightest provocation in Nigeria, we attack, we slap, we beat, we kill, we injure. This is not fair in any way. It is not good. It is not part of our culture. It is strange to us. And we need to retrace our steps to go back to our culture of managing one another, tolerating one another, assess situation before we react. Spontaneous reaction negatively may cause damage, may cause destruction, and what have you. The criminal law section 315 has explained, described murder, and of course, if you read this law, it's going to tell you so many things about it. Whether you facilitate, you encourage somebody to kill, parties to offenses, section 7 of the criminal law again is saying, so far you are involved in anything, you are involved in any criminal offense, you are going to be held responsible as well. You can easily have argument without having physical combat, slapping, beating, pushing. This might lead someone to jail. We don't want you to be in jail. Our beautiful cells are not for you, but they are for criminals. And I know you, looking at me, you are not a criminal. For you not to be a criminal, avoid crises, avoid fighting, avoid things that will lead you into problem or to be caught in the way of the law.
I want to welcome you to the third section of this our course. I'm so glad that I've not bored you with the legal jargons. I tried as much as possible when I'm taking this course, when I'm talking about law to people that are not, don't let me use the word learned. He said it's only lawyers that are learned. Every other person that went to university, even if you have PhD, you're educated. You're the only learned people. So I try as much as possible not to, I was checking one of the review of one of my books that I wrote on how to secure the future of your family. I think it was in Bamboo Books. And the person was saying that one of the things he loves about the book is not packed with legal jargons. That it's something you can understand. I hope you got one or two things from the video about anger management. You see, the Lord has to help us. One of my mentors, Reverend Eno, told me one day, he said, what they call emotional intelligence is actually what they got from the fruit of the Spirit. And I agree with him. We must, as much as possible, control ourselves. Control ourselves. If you look at that video, analyzing the video, it talks about assault, battery. These are offenses. These are offenses that, if care is not taken, people will be charged to court. And one of the things that, especially for those of us that stays in Lagos, that I want to really advise that we warn our members against is domestic violence. The way the present administration in Lagos is taking it, they're taking it so hard on perpetrators. People tend to get away with it, but any report that comes to the hearing of the government in Lagos now, they take it so serious. So as part of follow-up to the video that we watch, let's counsel our members to live out the fruit of the Spirit. I tell people, I said, one of the fruit of the Spirit that is needful, that I don't like, is long suffering. Is that you suffer, then you not suffer long. But it's the fruit of the Spirit. Patience, like I said, we must, as much as that's one of the advice I give to men, especially in the church these days. I said, because of the economic situation of the country, if you are not patient, if you are not, to use the word, that people will use. You are not emotionally intelligent, or to use the right word, if you are not full of the Spirit, if you are not living out the fruit of the Spirit, the tendency is for you to come back home and all the pressure you have gone, especially for us men, all the pressure you have gone throughout the day, you now pour it upon your family, people that don't know anything. Somebody, you've gone out, your business dealings did not go well, and as you get to the house, your children, daddy, your wife said that daddy, it doesn't concern him. In fact, you should take solace, you should take comfort in them. You say, sorry, this was the way the day went to, but let's just pray together. Instead of pouring your vestation on them, I try to encourage and advise men, and I advise women also, that please, we need to be patient with one another. So if you look at that video on anger management, it talks a lot about so many things. A lot about so many things, that the fact that we are Christians does not exonerate us or make us above the law. Rather, like Romans chapter 13 that we discussed, it enjoins us to always be law abiding. Let's encourage our members and let ourselves lead by example and be law abiding. By the grace of God, no matter what, I don't drive against the traffic. Many years ago, something happened. Accidentally, our CEO, Robert, I know is aware of it. There's an organization that was president for 34 years, Agape Conference. And we're going to camp that particular year. And we told ourselves to meet in the church. He was pastoring there at Onipan. So when I got to, we will now take a bus from the bus, chartered bus, we now go to camp. When I got to Onipan bus stop, or was it Pangu bus stop that I got to, something inside me was telling me, use the pedestrian bridge. I was looking at it, I said, before I climb that bridge, they are waiting for me, they are blah, 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 blah. And funny thing, for about 5 to 7 minutes, because of the traffic, I couldn't cross. And within that period, he said, look, you'll have gotten to the other side. Well, I think that should be over close to 15 to 20 years now. And I just jumped. I entered the road. I think it's over 20 years now, because the station is now, it's over 18 years. I jumped on the road. And as I jumped on the road, I crossed. Below, lo and behold, the guys, the law enforcers, were waiting for me at the other end. What did they do? They just escorted me to their boss. Said, please come. When I got to the place, I was so ashamed. I said, how do I tell this? A lawyer, a senior lawyer for that matter, you are running foul of the law. And so where I was rushing to go, I couldn't get there on time. And I don't know if they had to pay fine. They give me receipt, because I will not bribe them. They give me receipt. But I was very embarrassed. But by the time I told them that I was a lawyer, this and that, if you're a lawyer, then you should go to court upstairs so that they can judge your matter. So that's why, as much as possible, civil law requires us to do what is legally binding. We must have basic idea as leaders of what the law says. Like, how do we enter into valid contracts? Basic law about companies. For example, now, if somebody wants to register a company, there are different kind of companies under the new CAMA now. Under the old CAMA, we just have business name. We have business name. We have limited by guarantee, which accidentally CLS. When we registered CLS back then, we registered it under limited by guarantee, not knowing that it was futuristic. Innocently, we just said, okay, we don't want it to be a ministry so that they will not think that Reverend Abatano is going into a ministry. And when he discussed with me, I just said, sir, can we do it under limited by guarantee? And we went to do it. And that's what we're enjoying today, to the glory of God. But now, under the new command, they're different. We have business name, you have a limited liability company, private limited liability company, public limited liability company. You have partnership. You have, much like that, and you have the incorporated trustees that you can register. We need basic knowledge about this, not just for lawyers alone, not for you to do the work of lawyers, but when people come to you for advice, somebody wants to start a company, is a member of the church. Before you refer the person, you'll be able to guide. As some people will tell you that, just start your business small. Later you can now register. Well and good. One of the things that God has said to me, maybe because it's my own profession, I register companies well ahead of time. I don't register a company and I said I'm operating. I register. There was the multinational companies that came to Nigeria with a particular name. But somebody has already registered that name. They started rolling out. And by the time they get to Nigeria to register, somebody has registered the name. They have to go and negotiate to buy over. So what if the company you think that is not doing well start doing very well? What do you now do? When you said you want to go and register and the name is already registered, and that's the name you are known for, but because you want to open an account, or God help you, they've even given you check in that name, what will you do? So that's why it's always very good to have this basic idea so that we'll be able to. Another thing is, how do you be a good neighbor, both where you are staying and in the church? How do you relate with your neighbors? Where your church is located, where your ministry is located. There's what we call the tort law. That you know that is an offense if water from your compound flows into another compound. You can take it to court. But some of us said, it's my backyard now. Water can flow through my backyard. No, it does not work like that. So we need to know a bit about this so that we will prevent what could lead to disputes, crisis. And part of it is, what about the basic tenant and landlord relationship? Property laws. We'll discuss that fully as we go on in this course. But what we are saying in essence is that we should have a bit of ideas of this. And the church leader also must have a bit of ideas of criminal and civil law. A bit ideas of the civil law, the other side, which is the criminal law, the traffic offenses. We have so many people, over here, Charlie, if you use Lagos or Nigeria as an instance, people break traffic laws. And the day they are caught, they'll be telling that it's the devil that is persecuting them. No. Laws are meant to be obeyed. And one other thing that I really want to advise us as church leaders, don't say because everybody is doing it, you have to do it. Let me give you an instance that happened to me many years ago. If I'm not mistaken, I think that should be 1996 or 1997. My wife we're not married. I wasn't married then. My wife was in school, we were courting. She came over to Lagos. And when she was coming, one of her friends gave her a parcel or a message to deliver to her family in Lagos. Then there was no GSM or whatever. So I just saw that it's an opportunity to hang out together. So I took her to a place in Nigeria. And I was at this particular place. I'm not too familiar with that place. I saw public transport turning in that place. And they were going. And that's why I just put my head. That's the day they got me. And that day, the vehicle that I went with, my vehicle spent a day in the local government secretariat at Ademona. Why? I thought that others were doing it. I should be able to do it. at that time, what will I say? So, for the fact that others are disobeying traffic laws does not mean, and in Lagos, if you stay in Lagos now, you need to be very wise, because Lagos state government is looking for money, seriously. And one of the things they are doing now is the traffic offenses. In fact, you have fine on your cars. If you are fortunate enough, they will send a text message to you that they found that this particular car with this social number has broken traffic rules. You are fined 20,000. Go and pay. If you don't pay, the day you now enter into the, maybe they just do stop and start you on the road, they can confiscate your vehicle. And for those of us that I should believe that we don't have any traffic offender, you do it as with impunity, grace cover. Please, I want to plead with you. Do the right things. Part of the thing is, I'm even bolder now. I remember in those days, the day my vehicle license expired, I ceased to drive the vehicle. I don't want. My take is this: why should I be begging people that ordinarily should be saying yes sir to me? And that's what pushes us to say, okay, don't worry, let me give you. And some people justify the money, the bribe that you give to people. You said, I'm not the one that said I want to give them. They're the one that asked for it. It does not work that way. It doesn't work that way. Like the English people says, prevention is better than cure. So it's better you prevent what will make you. There was a particular day I got to a checking point. The car that I was driving that day has tinted glass. And the guy asked for this, asked for that, asked for that. That was when they were still asking for tinted glass. He asked me, and I brought it out. He said, "Okay, is it everything that you have?" I said, "Yes, because of someone like you. So that she will not embarrass me on the road." Is there anything for the boys? I said, "There's nothing for the boys. Can I go?" And I went. But if I don't have those things, what will happen? One, it will stop you, deprive you from where you are going. You start begging. When you beg, it will be telling you, if you go to the office, you pay so 1,000. If you go to the office, when I say, let's settle on the road. God help you. God help you. As a man of God, one of your members is coming when you are doing POS. And God help you. The person that you have paid bribe to, one day will come to your church or is watching you on the TV. Say, don't mind this man of God. There is not that guy will give us bribe. So what we are telling ourselves is that we need to understand this. That seems little things. I hope the video we watched was such a blessing to us so that we'll be able to learn the offenses such as assault, battery, felony. These are offenses that can send people to jail. Praise the name of the Lord. And what about the basic right? We need to know our basic right. If I ask this funny question now, it's very funny. Whichever country you are watching from, how many of you have the constitution of the country that you are in? When I was in year 2 in the university, and that was 1988 or whatever, I said there was a question I did in one of our constitutional law. I said one of the things that Nigerians say is, I know my right, I know my right. And by the time they open their mouth, you know that they don't know anything about the right. These are things, and it's so easy these days. You can easily Google the Nigerian Constitution. You go to the section on fundamental human rights. You just bring yourself to bear. These are some of the basic things that you just partake. You should know. The Lord will help us in Jesus' name. And so it's very important to know our basic rights so that when we are wrongly treated, we'll know how to do, what to recourse to in the law. So that we're not just like, okay, let's just forgive. One thing I realized that because people don't know their law, they don't know their right. One of the things that I said, Pastor, are you saying we shouldn't forgive? I'm not saying you should not forgive. I was in Manchester one day, And my friend took me to the shopping mall. When we got to the shopping mall, shop direct, I will not forget. He said, Seye, hold on, don't open the door. Let me come and open that door for you. I said, wow. I stayed. And he came to open the door. I came down, he locked the doors. He said, that guy that is sitting down inside that car is waiting for you to open that door. If the door touches his own car, small like this, he will make trouble. I say, wow. Do you know there are some people over there, especially in England, some other climates, that they will deliberately go to a place, they will fall down. And once they fall down, they want to make claim against the establishment. So there are so many things that we forego in Nigeria, that when we get to other climate, realize that they will not. It's actionable. And that's why it's good for us to be able to know this. One other discussion we are going to do as we go for break. I think what we're going to do now is that I will just I will throw this discussion. Then when we are on break, we will now be able to discuss it. Is the issue of at what point do we draw a balance between insisting on our rights and forgiveness? Very, very important. You see, this discussion, in fact, maybe I should just even leave this discussion so that we'll make it our case study or one of our assignments. When do we draw the balance between insisting on our rights and forgiveness? The Bible says we should forgive and forgive. Let's go on. See on the brief between about the church leader on criminal and civil law, laws of inheritance and will. What about the law of inheritance? What about the law? What about writing wills? Letter of administration in the absence of will? And how important is this in relation to our PFAs? By the time we are running up this course, we'll be talking about a bit about pension and what pension says on the pension laws, just a bit about it. These are some of the things we need to know as pastors. Very, very important. One of the challenges I give to people is that what's the essence of you working very hard and at the end of it, everything that you own goes to another set of people, or you allow new set of people that don't know anything about it, like we have in some of the customs. Then immediately the husband dies, especially our sisters that are very, very unfortunate. Immediately they push them out of the inheritance, all in the name that there's no will. And when you go for letter of administration, it takes time that you don't get the administration, so that you cannot manage. Meanwhile, if there's money in the bank will be feeding on the money. Then you want to know a bit about the next of kin in relation to property transaction. How do we address the documentation for the church? What is the consequence of a family title? That means a family land with the title Mr. and Mrs. Does he hold anything in law? What about pastors standing sureties, guarantors, or writing reference for church members? These are some of the things that we should be conversant with. I can say straight away that when we want to document for the church, especially a registered church, it must be in the name of the board of trustees, the registered trustee of that name. For example, when we are doing documentation for any church in Foursquare, Nigeria will write the registered trustees of Foursquare Gospel Church in Nigeria. That is the one that has registration. That's the one that has the legal backing. Because that is in that name they can sue, and they can be sued. So, very, very important. What about the consequence of family with the title Mr. and Mrs.? What is advised is that when you want to buy a property in your name, Mr. and Mrs. can be anybody. For example, if you write Mr. and Mrs. Seye Awopetu, anybody can be the Mrs. So the best advice we give to people is that, for example, now I'd rather write Mr. Seye and Mrs. Phil Awopetu. So it is so specific. Or you write, some people will want to write it Mr. Seye Awopetu and Mrs. Phil Awopetu. So we should always have that. What about next of kin? One thing I must tell you straight away, that next of kin does not mean that, some people will say that when you write the next of kin, that means if anything happens to my money in the bank, it is my next of kin. The bank will not honor that. The bank will not honor that. I think what that place is just what the next of kin does. It's so that people, in case of any emergency, they can know who to contact. That's it. Because it's serious. Even some companies, they will insist on letter of administration or a valid way to be able to know to pay the remuneration to. So we must have all this at the back of our mind. And what about pastors standing for sureties? In the organization I belong to, there is an advice that pastors should, as much as possible, refrain from standing as sureties, guarantors for members. So that some of these members, you don't really know what they are involved in, especially people that you don't know very well. And in order not to bring your name and the name of the organization that you represent to disrepute, it's better to explain to them and just stay away from it. And when you are writing reference letter for church members to the school, you always write a reference letter to the extent that you know the person, so that you don't get yourself into trouble. So, please, anyone that is interested in knowing more about law of inheritance, the law of writing wills, letter of administration, and what have you, there's a book that God helped us to package some years back, called it Statutory, Securing the Future of Your Family. It's on Amazon, and as well also you can get it. To read at Bamboo Books. And if you want the physical copy, please you can contact us as time goes on. Praise the name of the Lord. There is this video that you're going to watch on acquisition of, property acquisition in Lagos, permits and what have you, because we're going to discuss that. So I want us to watch that video. Then immediately we'll come back.
Things you do unconsciously on your land or on your existing building that are illegal, according to the Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Regulation 2019. Number 1, erection of a building. Any types of building erected without obtaining a planning permit from the Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority is illegal. 2, addition or alteration. Addition or alteration of any part or section of an existing building without authorization is illegal. For example, if you have a planning permit to erect a 3-floor structure and you erected 4 floors, or you extended the wall of such a building beyond what is in the planning permit, it is illegal according to the planning regulation. Number 3, building renovation. Any changes made to any part of an existing building without authorization is illegal. For example, if you decide to change the windows and doors of your building, or change your tiles, or change the roof of your building, you must obtain a planning permit before doing so. 4. Zoning regulation. Failure to comply with zoning regulation of your area. For example, if you construct a residential building in an area zone for industrial development without authorization, it is illegal. 5. Setback requirement. Failure to maintain and comply with the required distance between a building and the road or other artificial or natural features, e.g. high tension power lines, pipelines, water bodies, etc., is illegal. 6. Fencing. Fencing of your property without authorization from the Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority is also illegal. Demolition. Demolition of an old structure for a new one without a planning permit is illegal. Above are some of the activities you do unconsciously on your land or on your existing building that require the planning permission of the Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority. Watch out for the next video where you will be educated on what you can do to legalize your illegal structure.
You're welcome back. After that video, it talks about the acquisition of property. What permits you need to acquire, especially if you are based in Lagos. Like I said, this course is something that we can relate to as church leaders, and at the same time for our personal life and for our church, for our churches. It's something that we should go to know. So what we want to look at as we continue this section is a brief about the church and the acquisition of landed properties, lease and rental. And these are my advice, that after locating a place to buy or rent, either for yourself or for the church, the next thing to carry out is what we call due diligence. Due diligence. It is advised that you get a professional to do this for you. And when I mean by professional, you could get a lawyer, because you can always get a surveyor. The surveyor will not really do the work of due diligence. So I'll just get a lawyer. A lawyer knows what to look at. For example, if you want to acquire a property, you need to know the person selling. Is the title valid? You need to know that. Very, very important. If his title is not valid, for such you should run away from. And you have scenarios that they'll tell you they don't have anything, the only thing they have is family receipt and whatever. So that is what we call on-site due diligence also. What do I mean by on-site due diligence? You visit the area. I remember there was a particular one of our churches wanted to buy. And as the district legal advisor, I was invited. And when the pastor told me, I said, okay, there's no document, don't worry. We will go and see. So one of the days we went I went with the pastor. He said, go and show me the place. When we got there, it was many, many years ago. When we got there, we went to the site of the property. We were looking around like this. And when we looked around, nobody challenged us. We went to meet the nearest house. Thank God there was a house. I said, sorry, we are interested in this property. Do you know the owner? The man said, that property, don't go there. There's so many cases on it. That's how God delivered the church from such. And when you go like that on site inspection, even when there are documents, when there are proper documentation, I'll still part of the due diligence that we encourage people to do is to go and see whether the people selling are actual owners and whether they've not sold it to someone, or maybe there is family problem on it, or maybe there is crisis on it. Is there a case on it? Is there a court case on it? That's why we always advise due diligence. And if you are fortunate enough, the document, there's registered document that takes the search to the land registry in your location. You can apply to search, and to really be sure that they are selling to you is the actual one. You can also carry out due diligence in the Surveyor General's office, just to make sure that what you are going into. And one of the things I advise churches to do is this: when you have done all this, there's some guys that are so criminally minded. There was a particular case I had one time. One of the big churches, they duped the church. What did they do? The way they orchestrated it to the land registry. That even when you go and search at the land registry, they planted their people there. They connived with the people inside, that they will bring out that file for you with the name of the proposed buyer, which is not the owner. It was that bad. By the time the money has passed, by the time the church discovered, they sacked so many workers after they investigated. But for such sort, one of the things I used to tell people, I said, okay, for example, if you are buying a property of about 80 million, I said, okay, do you know what? Can we negotiate that we should just pay some? Let's move into the property, so that you count your costs. If there's anything that now rises up after that, you can now say, okay, give me back my money. If you cannot give me back my money, at least you count your loss and move up. So there's so many things, but it's very good to get a professional to do this due diligence. Then the second thing I would advise is that you get a lawyer from the onset, so that you will not become a victim. This side, when I mean this side, it's our side in Africa. We don't value professionals, not just lawyers alone. Remember, I did a document for one church member. Before we did that document, she asked me how much I was going to charge. I told her what I would charge, and she divided it by half. I said, okay, because you are a elderly person, a mother, go ahead. When I finished the documentation, she paid me, she just gave me one stipend. You know what she said? He said, what did you even do, sir? Is it not just copy and didn't you just copy? Don't negotiate or sign any documents. It's an advice behind your solicitor. It can be very devastating. Gary, I'm telling you from experience. For example, when we do, let me just give you an example. I'm letting out our secret. When we enter into tenancy agreements with someone, actually a tenant that you feel that you cannot really trust. Maybe you just feel that this tenant might not want to pay, might not be of good behavior. You're not sure. There's a clause that we'll put there. This tenancy is for 1 year certain. Putting that clause alone says that immediately the tenancy expires, that is the end of the tenancy, not renewable. So if I want to eject such a tenant, I'll just give him 7 days notice. After he has signed the tenancy agreement, I give him 7 days notice, and that's all. And you say, no, you need to give me 6 months notice because go and check your agreement. So that's why it's always very, so many things that the lawyer can crab in once they give you a document to sign. One of the things that by training, there's no document. If somebody says I should sign as a witness, and the person just carry, like one of my friends did, they gave him a document to sign. He just signed it. When he gave it to his witness for him, I said, let me read what you have signed. He said, look at lawyer. Of course. That's why I went to school. I will read through. Your lawyer will read through to be able to explain to you. But some of us will feel that should be the document, they done it so that I should not go and pay. I don't want to pay lawyers. Yoruba says anyone found woeful. I'm sorry. You want something that is cheap. You are looking for trouble. That's the truth. Don't sign any document behind your lawyers, because you need to know the documents. For example, now, if you are entering into, if you are taking a lease or you are renting a place for a church, you have the right to have your tenancy agreement signed. If it's a land that you are buying for yourself or for the church, you are entitled to deed of assignment, contracts of sales, and let them prepare this. If they prepare it for you, like some sellers who insist, let them, you give to your lawyers to check. Of course, you have to pay your lawyers. If you don't pay your lawyers, how will they pay tithe? Or how will they feed their family? Also, I want us to know that all church documentation must be in the name of the registered trustees of the association. I think I've said it. So the pastor, that you are the pastor, for example, if I'm the pastor or the general overseer of a church now, and the church is registered, I cannot buy property and not register it in my name. It must be in the name of the registered trustees and the name of the organization. Whatever the name, for example, must be the registered trustees of Love Ministry Incorporated. That is it. It might not be in the name of Awopetu. No, it must be in the name. So all church documentation must be in the church, and it must be signed. If it's a church, it must be signed by the chairman. It must be signed by the chairman of the board of trustees and the secretary. Maybe the chairman of the board of trustees might be the general overseer. If you don't have a governing body, those two must sign the document, and they must affix the seal of the association. So these are some of the basic things that we actually need for us to, when it comes to rentals, lease, purchase of property. And after you have done this, you should go a step further to ask, how do you perfect the documents? I see so many documents, unperfected documents. You just dump it there and say they don't want to pay to them. But it's always good to go further. And of course, as soon as possible, do a registered survey in the name of the organization also. So that these are all important documents. Part of the benefit when you have a title, if there's anything, anybody comes up and says that they sold that place to them and what have you, you should be able to have a document to prove that this belongs to us. We bought so. But if you just have a document, you sign a document and you left it unperfected, there will be issues, there will be problem. When there's problem, when there's issue, and the other person now goes to register his own that he bought ahead of you, you will lose out. You just lose out like that. So please, let's have this at the back of our mind. Thank you. We have come to the end of this section. God bless you. See you in the next section. So you're welcome back to the fourth section. This section will be looking at conflict and dispute resolution among the body of Christ. When I mean among the body of Christ, it means between one church and the other. Since we said the church can, thank God for our discussion, we said the church can be sued, will not sue, whether the church can be sued or what have you. Then how do we resolve conflicts? What about among us as Christians? How do we resolve conflict? Bearing in mind 1 Corinthians chapter 6, 1 to 11, Matthew chapter 18, 15 to 20, you know. And looking at the position, can one church sue another church under the law? The answer is yes. I quoted for us section 830 of Kaman. You can sue and be sued. So church can sue one another. But the question is this, which is our another discussion question. He said the Bible standard versus the position of the law. What should the church and individual in the church do? We can sue as individual, and the church can sue as an incorporated trustee. But the position of the law is that we shouldn't go to law against our brothers. We'll discuss that at the end of this section. One of the things that we have seen, and one of the things that we are advising, particularly I'm advising, that instead of going to court to drag it out, we should seek for other dispute resolution, alternative dispute resolution. We call it ADR. One thing I have to stress at this point is that anytime we have gathering, associations, there will always be disagreement. There's some disagreement that people will want to do that no matter what happened, you say they are not settling. You now say, no, that's on Christianly, this and that, blah, blah, blah. The easy example that comes to mind from the Bible is the issue that happened between Apostle Paul and Barnabas. Though later on they said, but at that particular time, everybody went their different ways. So, what I would be recommending, that as Christians, as Christians, we should look at if once the worst scenario occurs, and that there is no meeting point, and we look at it that we cannot solve this thing, instead of going to court, there's what we call mediation, reconciliation, and arbitration. I say this as an alternative to litigation by the church. What is mediation? Mediation means intervention in a dispute in order to resolve it. It also means an attempt to use dialogue to settle a dispute amicably. Keep on discussing. And for me, I don't think there's any dispute. Part of the values of life that I share, and I tell my clients, I will never go to court because of money. I would rather allow you to cheat me. Go with the money. But that's, just go. If that's the way you treat yourself. And another thing that I've come to realize with people is that when you are ready to let go, fulfill your right, as the Bible says, you will be surprised that it will be very easy for you to relate with people. That's the truth. And reconciliation also means the restoration of friendly relationship. Reconciliation means the action of making one's view or belief comparable with others. The goal is, whatever happens, you want to reconcile with that person. That's the goal. Very, very important. You will have the mind that I will not, yes, there's a dispute. And you see, dispute happens many places. Disputes in business, disputes even among church members. And one of the things is that you find out people are always very reluctant to go into business with fellow brethren now. Because they said that since they said we cannot go to court, dispute arises. But we should look at mediation. We should look at, and that's what the Bible says. Is that instead of going to the law, is that there is no elder that you can submit to that can resolve this matter. You are not going to display your ignorance before the law, before unbelievers. You know, it's so pathetic when unbelieving judges are in disputes. Somebody, I think it was in the course of the law, in the course of, I don't know whether it was in the course of this course. I heard somebody saying that there's a particular denomination, they've been in court in Nigeria, and who are going to adjudicate over them, leadership tussle, unbelievers. I was told that there's one judge that said one day, he was telling church, he said, if you people as leaders of the church cannot resolve your crisis with the Bible, they will use the Quran, they will use Ogun to resolve the crisis. There are some of the things that we must look for better ways as Christians to resolve our crisis. What about business disputes? What about disputes in the church? You borrow somebody money and the person refuses to pay back. And the next thing is you get the police to mess up the person. What about disputes? As related to you give somebody work to do, artisans, and the person refuses to do your job, only the name that you are brother, so in the church. There are some of the, and that's why I suggest some of those things. Mediation, reconciliation. Another one is arbitration. What does arbitration mean? The use of an arbitrator to solve disputes. Arbitration is a formal method of dispute resolution involving a neutral third party who makes a binding decision. The process of solving an argument between people by helping them to agree to an acceptable solution. Arbitration also means the procedure the procedure is conducted by an arbitrator. What does that mean? Two parties like I have now with me. There are two companies, they have a dispute over a contractual agreement. And instead of going to the law, they settle for arbitrator. So we're in the process of setting up the arbitration panel now. What is provided in the agreement is that each of them will appoint an arbitrator each. And the two arbitrators will now appoint one arbitrator. There will now be three. And the three of them, they will sit over the matter and provide solution to the matter. There are some that they will just say, okay, it's a single arbitrator, two of us will agree. And there are some that they will say, look, if two of us cannot agree on getting an arbitrator, we will apply to the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators to appoint one for us. And from there, we will go on to do what we're supposed to do. Part of the advantages, part of the benefits of mediation, reconciliation, and arbitration over litigation. One, it is less cumbersome and less stressful than litigation. It is less formal or legalistic than litigation. It's an informal, you sit down, not the legal procedure, the procedure. Yes, it also has its own procedure, but it's not as legalistic as appearing before a judge, wear your wig and gown before the high court, rules, procedures to follow and whatever. It's less legalistic. And litigation damages relationship. There is this saying in Yoruba, he said, anti-court de cadore. You cannot go to court and will not become friends. But mediation encourages compromise and finding solution. And arbitration also is cheaper, though it's becoming very, very expensive now, and faster than the court. When I decided to slow down on litigation was when a judgment that we got in 1994 We could not execute the judgment until 2014, 20 years after. The matter went all the way to the Supreme Court of Nigeria. And after that, I just told myself, it's not worth it. Thank you. So we're going to go to our discussion on, I said we're going to discuss now. As we go for this break, we'll just take that discussion, the Bible standard and the position of the law. What should the church and the individual do? God bless you. I want to welcome you back to this section, and I believe God that the final sections, section 5 and section 6 of this course, contemporary church laws and statutory laws. My name is Seye Awopetu. I've been the one taking us on this discussion. So we want to look at understanding the statutory regulatory body of the church. Basically, we are using Nigeria as a case study. There are two basic bodies that are responsible for regulating the church in Nigeria, or let's say non-profits making bodies in Nigeria. Number one is the Corporate Affairs Commission, as established by the CAMA 2020, like I told us early on. And secondly is the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria, as established by the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria, Act of 2021. And what is the relationship between the church and this regulatory body? The Corporate Affairs Commission is, like when we're talking about the requirement for registration, is responsible for the rules and regulations to follow as per registration of churches, as discussed earlier. So any organization that wants to operate as a church must be registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission. Churches are also required to file annual returns of their audited account. We also discussed this also. They request that all churches that is registered under the Corporate Affairs Commission file their annual returns every year according to their financial year. Financial year for us in Foursquare, the organization I belong to, is from July, that's the church year, July to June. And it gives us room to prepare for the National Convention, which is in November. And after that, when the report is ready, the account will be audited and the filing will be done before the 31st of December that particular year. So it is very, very important that, in line with the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria, which established the Financial Reporting Council, churches, like any other organization, are expected to obey directive from Federal Financial Reporting Council, Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria, and churches are expected to comply with the rules of corporate governance. Like I said, when we get to the course of corporate governance, we'll discuss more on that. Another question we want to answer is understanding that the church can engage in profit-making business. Can the church actually engage in the profit-making business, since under the law it is not profit-making? I remember when we were having this course on social media, church and social media. Our lecturer then told us that one of the things that they advise churches is to grow their social media platform so that they can earn money. and I raised my observation that under the law, under section 838 of the CAMA, when I say CAMA, I mean the Company and Allied Matters Act 2020, says that, among other things, that the church is not set up to make profit. So, how does the church, what do we do? There's some churches, Pastor, but there's some churches that they own schools. Are they not making profit from the school? There's churches that they own establishment. Are they not, they own this, they own event center, they own that, they own that. Are they not making profit from it? Churches cannot pay dividends like limited liability company or public quoted companies because it is regarded as a non-profit organization. And because the churches is regarded as a non-profit organization, the churches are exempted from tax. Not just churches alone, other religious bodies also. But because our focus is on church, they're exempted from paying tax. Though those who earn salaries under the church must pay as you earn. We'll discuss that later on in the course. So, since the church is a non-profit making, can the church engage in profit making business? That's the question we are trying to answer. Can the church engage in profit making business? My advice is this: the law provides that the church must pay tax on any business that brings profit, which is outside his ecclesiastic duty, and that is why the law requires that the church and other non-profit making organizations must file annual returns so that the regulatory body will be able to determine if they are acting within their boundary or not. Very, very important. By the time you file in your annual report and they see that you are engaged in things that brings profit, they raise the red flag. My advice is this: and I'll use the method we tend to apply in the church that have the privilege of pastoring. There is a structure that we have, which ultimately we said is going to be something that we're going to use as an event center as time goes on. Because one of the things that I discovered now is that when you have a structure like the one we have by the gospel, it will be very tough for you to use, especially when after some time, it will be very tough for you to use the tithes and offering that you are getting to maintain the structure. So in anticipation, what we did was that there was a space we had for another property that we could use for service. It's not the main auditorium, we could use for service, and we build it in such a way that it will be an event center that could make profit. But one of the things I told the church council is that before we could delve into this, we had to register a small company, a business name that have its own staffs, and having their own staff, they deal with that. They pay profits when they pay tax when they make profit, and every worker under them will pay taxes. Very, very important. So that when the books are open, you will not be accused of making profit. And so if, as you listen to me, you find yourself in this conundrum that as a church, there's opportunity for you to make, or you're already making money, you're making profit, which is outside the purview of the law, it's important. My advice to you is that just as much as possible, go ahead and do the needful. Do the needful. Do the needful. Don't wait on the regulatory body. One of the things I tell people is that they say that everybody is doing it now. Government will not know. There are some people that are building as we talk now, And for those of us, like we heard the man when he was talking about obtaining permits, especially for those of in Lagos, I said they don't need permit now. Too many houses are built in Lagos without permit. And when the government comes, no matter how big the cathedral is, they have the right to pull it down. It's not persecution. It's just that you are careless. And because you are careless, you've let the money that God has put in your care. You wasted the money that God has put in your care. Whichever place you find yourself, look for ways you could get the necessary approval. Very, very necessary. And the same thing, you are into business. Yes, you can engage in business. Like for example, we have a school, a nursery and primary school. It's registered with Lagos State. They pay the necessary things to the Lagos State. And every year they ask as proprietor of the school, yes, the senior pastor as the proprietor of the school, they ask for my own tax certificate to deal with the school. I will encourage all the staffs of the school to do or to pay their taxes, so that we don't fall on the wrong side of the law. You know, all these are things that we should know and do to avoid embarrassment. You might be getting away with it now, and that's what happened. You are getting away with it. Where I stay in Lagos, you know, there's a place that before now, though they disrupt all the plants now. That place used to be a mover zone. And anytime any of our churches said they want to buy land there, my advice is that don't dabble into that place. And we said there's some other churches that are building there. I said my advice is don't build there. Don't purchase land there. Until one government came on it and said to clear all the place. I think it was Adisa, the Minister of Works and Housing, decide to clear that. What will you now say? Will now be organizing vigil, something that is preventable. So that's my advice. He said, no, God will superimpose his will. The little I know about God, God does not encourage injustice. When he says something is meant for something, don't bring the name of God into disrespect. And you know what goes down if you are going to maintain that structure? A lot of bribing, money will exchange, because you have done what is wrong. You are caught in doing what is wrong. And even maybe as you are giving them that bread, and rapture takes place, what happened to you? The Lord will help us. We're going to go into the sixth and the final section. The sixth and final section. And we're going to be talking a brief about the church and tax matters. The position of the law is that every business that the church does, that is outside the ecclesiastic, duties that the church is known for, the church must pay tax. So true, though church are exempted from paying tax, but staffs of the church that hands from the church are requested to pay their tax. Did you get that? Church are exempted from paying tax, but if you are drawing salary from the church, you're expected to pay your tax. One of the questions I would like to ask is, if you're a general overseer and you are not collecting money from the ministry, but you collect money from other source, like your publication, daddy thank you, envelope, honorarium, are you expected to pay tax? Let's discuss that. I will also talk about the Pension Act, that is the contributory pension scheme under the Pension Act. We talk about the CPS, contributory pension scheme, that says that the minimum contribution under the Act is 18%, that is of monthly emolument, which is a minimum contribution of 10% by the employer and 8% by the employee. What that is saying is that the monthly contribution, the minimum must be 18%. If you feel like you can do more than that, That's the minimum. And 10% must be from the employer, and the 8% must be from the employee. And there's what we call the retirement savings account, which your PFA, the pension fund association, will manage on your behalf. You know. And it says that one of the things that it has is that the holder of the RCA shall, upon retirement or attaining the age of 50 years, whichever is later, utilize the amount credited to his account saving for the following benefits. 1. Withdrawal of the lump sum from the total amount credited to his RSA, provided that the amount left after the lump sum withdrawal shall be sufficient to procure program fund withdrawals or annuity for life in accordance with the guidelines issued by the commission from time to time. Very, very important. You know, one of the things that every one of us will advise, and I was telling somebody today for this recording that the last set of ministers that were inducted in our organization, I heard the general overseer saying that attached to their letter is pension scheme form. That means every one of them must be on pension, that is preparing for their retirement. It's very, very, very important. And so this is provided for by the Pension Act and the Retirement Saving Account, RSA. These are after retirement or when the person is 50. It's talking about what to use it for. The law also says that the program monthly or quarterly withdrawal circulated based on expended life expenditure. What that means is that after you have made the lump sum that will be paid to you at your retirement or when you are 50, depending on the one that comes first, there will be a structured monthly or quarterly withdrawal based on the balance that you have on your account. The amounts, I think the idea behind it is that since you are used to collecting salary, there's something will still be coming to you regularly, or the purchase of annuity for you as life insurance. And there are also many companies that they are licensed by the National Insurance Commission of Nigeria. One thing that I must point out at this, which most pension managers don't point out, is that before your beneficiary can access your pension in case of your demise, you need a valid will or a letter of administration that's confirming that. And one of the things that is advised is that most of us will just if you buy the book that I told us about, realize that most of us, especially Christians, we live our life to chance. I will not die, but live to declare the glory of God. Yes, nobody says you will die, but it is very, very important that you put your house in order. I was happy when I read it in one of the open heavens by Baba Debo that says that if you're over 40, there was a particular day, says if you're over 40 as you read this and you have not written your will, go and get it lawyer. I wrote my first will about how many years ago now? 14 years ago. My daughter that was in primary school now, and then is in the law school now. And she saw a copy of the will where I dropped it for her mother to go through. And she came to ask the mother and said, is Daddy going to die? The mother asked, at that age, primary school. So why did you say? She said, I saw Daddy is writing his will. So for those of you that are afraid, you're over 40, you have not written your will, the earlier the better you go and do it. If you are being paid, pension is you are remitting your pension. If anything happens to you, your people, your beneficiary will not be able to access that in the absence of a valid will that is admitted to probate. Otherwise, what they will just tell them is that they should go and get letter of administration. If you read that book, you see the difficulty of getting the letter of administrations. So it's always very, very important, very, very important, so that we're able to look at the pros and cons. So always have this at the back of your mind when we talk about pension. And you see, the pension we're talking about is that staffs in the church. I thank God for our organization. Even part-time, we call them non-salary staff. They are not being paid salary, but the church is encouraged to contribute pension for them, so that at the end of the time that they've served the church, they will not just go empty-handed. At least they will have something to fall back to. I want to encourage those of you that are general overseers of your ministries. If you don't have these provisions for your pastors, please do. And if you are not general overseers and you are a 360-degree leader, according to John Maxwell, you are 360-degree leader, please do that. Do that. Look for a way of influencing your leaders. And these are some things that you feel that you should put in place, so that it's not when you retired that you now be, one thing that ministers must know, that after we're retired, that we leave it to brown envelope. Daddy, thank you. So we must begin to plan ahead. So it's very, very important that we not only plan for now, we should also plan for our retirement. I must conclude this course. Before concluding, I want to really appreciate you. And I hope that I've not bored you with the legal jargons, because I remember, I just imagine when some of us had that, contemporary laws, they were quoting, according to social person, according to social person. I hope I've not done that. What we've done is just to discuss. And of course, you should be ready for your assignments, your case studies. You should also be ready for your exams. That will surely come. I want to assure you that what the course, the entire program is trying to do is, how do we manage the church better? How do we administer the church better? One of the ways I sell this program is that, look, people are in ministry and they just feel that the only thing you need in ministry is the anointing. Once you have the anointing, everything other thing will follow. But we have realized there are much more than that. There's a particular ministry that they sent about 5 of their pastors to do MBA, including the wife of the lead pastor in the business school that I know. I'll keep that on around. And can you ask me what is the amount? The tuition, 4.5 million. 5 of them. I know the ministry, I know the church. I mentioned the church, the business school. I know the president of the business school. We had a meeting there, and I saw, and I know the fee. I saw their pictures. I know the fee. So you can imagine how that church is run. It will not be run the way some of us are running the ministry. And that's the essence of the whole program. And as much as possible, I try to encourage pastors. Look, get involved. Come for this program. And that was the reason why I decided to, apart from taking this course as a lecturer, I decided I was going to enroll for the course myself because I know it's something I needed, and I've never regretted that decision. Because every week when we come in, though I don't say much, but every week when we come in, I just learn new things that I have to start implementing, even in the church that I pastor. So please, it's something that every one of us will need. And by the grace of God, when they start the advanced diploma, by God's grace, I want to be a student also, apart from lecturing also. And the Lord will help us in Jesus. So in conclusion, let us remember always that the fact that your ignorance of the law is not an excuse. We are enjoying to seek to know. That is what this course are trying to achieve. May God grant us understanding in all that we do. I want to sincerely appreciate you for your patience. And my prayer is that the Lord will grant you understanding, even much more than this. And one thing I can assure you is that you can reach out for what do we call it now? For legal consultation. And don't ask me how much will it cost. When you reach out, we'll discuss the cost. God bless you.